great, big, beautiful world out there. And here I sit, sucking on popsicles.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Imbasciani Chronicles. I'm your host, Mike Imbasciani. Thank you for joining me. And it's been a little while since we've had a podcast, but I've made a new, very good friend here. So we had a wonderful conversation on the radio yesterday.
It's the best.
And so I figured, why not get a podcast in here?
Let's do it, dude. I apologize in advance for not having much time.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Hey, okay. I appreciate you making time.
And thank you for the donut.
Of course.
Right.
I have something else for you here. This will spark a good conversation. But first, Steve Simeone. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, buddies.
Yes. And it is Simeone, correct?
Yeah, but I think I'm going to try to bring it back to pronounce it the way it should be.
Okay, because you're a good Italian boy like me, Imbasciani.
Yes.
You know.
And it should be Simeone.
Simeone, yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it has that funky E in there.
Yeah,
that's what I noticed because I Google searched you before the radio the other day, and you type it in how you think it's said,
right?
And then there's that funky little vowel extra thrown in there, and that's okay. He's Italian,
100%.
Yeah, but I do have this for you. It's a little tiny Jesus.
Oh, dude, thank you.
I'm sure you may have come across those before in the past, but
absolutely amazing. Praise the Lord.
Yes, exactly, and that's something that I want to dive into.
Let's do it.
We can do that first because I was not raised totally religious, and it's one of those things I'm on. Let me see. I think I'm on day 29 of the Bible in a year.
Oh, that's amazing. With Father Mike Schmitz?
Yeah. Love this guy.
He's incredible.
He is incredible.
He's a special, special person. And I love that guy.
Yeah, and I love his personality. I love how he just reads it. He reads it like you're just having a conversation, which is nice. And I know this is an entertainment podcast, but this goes into that because I made the point yesterday on the radio that I feel faith is coming back
huge
into entertainment.
Has to.
And people aren't afraid to talk about it anymore.
No, I don't know how that changed, but it's like, I think when you see one person share a little bit, and that just gives other people the confidence to do it.
Yes.
And I also think everybody understands there's something going on in the world.
Yeah.
And you can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
And the only thing that helps is Jesus. That's it. Like I used to just, you know how they say like, keep my beliefs to myself.
Right.
Just do it quietly.
Yeah.
And, as a Christian, I also felt like, well, I don't want to seem like a Pharisee. I'm like, but now I just tell people I'm a white belt Catholic. Like, so I stick to the basics, right. White belt.
Yeah, so white belt Catholic. So how long have you always been religious? Was that something as you went through your entertainment career, you were drawn to?
I think I've been blessed.
Okay.
Because I've always had faith, which is just a gift. Like I don't know why I always believed, but I didn't always live a sacramental life. Like the Catholic Church I grew up in was not, I don't know how Catholic it was. Like there's so much I'm discovering about my own faith now. I'm like, what's adoration? Wait, how often should I go to confession? Things like that. And now it's like, I just stick to the sacraments. I think like confession and attending mass, it's the diet and exercise to the spiritual life. Like, dude, like if you want to get in shape, exercise and watch what you eat.
Right. As I gave you a donut when you got here.
And that's about the type of Catholic I am. Like,
right. It's like,
I'll confess my sins and like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I did it again. How did I do it again?
Exactly. But that's what makes Jesus great. And that's
amazing.
What makes faith great.
Yes,
and so,
it's the greatest.
And for me, it has been a little more recent journey. It's one of those things where, like I just said, I wasn't really raised that religious.
Can I ask you what made you to sort of go,
I feel like it's just been an ever-growing thing. It was never that like immediate, I wasn't ever an atheist. I wasn't ever somebody like, I don't believe in God. It's like, I always knew, to me, it was one of those things like, you got to have faith. Yeah. Like, it's always there. Yes. Of course, I believe in God. But now I'm kind of more taking that journey of diving into the Bible and that podcast, Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz.
There's so many great tools now.
Yes.
Like,
I'm a very visual person.
Me too. I've learned more about my faith through YouTube.
Exactly.
I'm like, this is incredible. There's like, I call myself, I'm a self-proclaimed Catholic nerd.
Nice.
Where I'm like, have you seen Father Jim Blunt's latest video? It's like me and 80-year-old women at church. They're like, oh, I haven't seen it yet.
That's your knitting.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Saul Goodman from Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
I'm like, bingo with the Knights of Columbus.
Right. And so I think that's something that is becoming more vocal in entertainment. As you said. So of course there is I'm a musician, you're a comedian, we each want to be each other.
Yeah.
Which that is a very true thing. I've talked to a lot of people about that.
That's so cool.
But you're seeing, I saw your set last night. You bring it up.
Yeah.
I may play certain songs that you can get whatever information out of it you want to get out of it.
Awesome.
Whether it's, but you don't preach from your job as an entertainer because you're still an entertainer. People are coming to you to forget about, their problems.
Yes.
So it's our job as entertainers to, distract them for an hour or whatnot.
Yeah, and that's a gift.
Yeah, but there's also nothing says you can't take the joy that you've received in being a Christian. And
that's what it's all about.
That's passing it on to somebody with your gift as an entertainer.
Yeah, it's like I've noticed that you have to be careful. What the analogy I use is if you're driving with somebody, if I step too much on the Jesus pedal, they're going to want to get out of the car.
Right, yeah.
And my ultimate goal is for them to be the happiest version of themselves. Like, as a Christian, you love everybody.
Yeah.
And if you really do love somebody, you don't want to see them suffer.
Right.
And we live in such a fallen, collapsed culture where everybody's suffering. You have to, the only answer is Jesus. And I remember my faith, like it jump started during COVID.
Yeah.
And like not always, but it made me feel good when people would come to me with their problems.
Yeah.
It just made me feel trusted.
You feel like at least then you could get another job as a therapist.
Yeah, right. and like the vast majority of my friends, especially when I lived in Los Angeles, were comedians.
Oh, yeah.
And I would always try to just make them feel supported and loved no matter what they were going through. And I would pray for them without them knowing. But then like so many phone calls during COVID, and it was just like the yuckiness of the world amplified. And I just got to the point where like, hey man, I don't have time. You have to pray.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that works.
Right.
Well, I don't believe. Well, pray that you do believe.
Yeah.
Because these are the
pray
times
for the
in which
strength
we're
to
living.
believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about COVID, and that was one of those things as a musician. Before COVID, I would always say, if people are happy, they go out and drink. If people are sad, they go out and drink. I'll always have a job.
Yep.
And then the government said, ha, psych.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. And because during COVID, they shut everything down, all the mom and pop businesses. You were non-essential. I was non-essential in those type of jobs, and they closed the churches.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And that was when people needed church the most. And that's where, as people came out of the lockdowns and they say, hey, we were lied to by the government, all of this was going on.
That was one of my favorite things about moving to Florida.
Yeah.
Like I had one real strong Catholic buddy in LA, and he was like, can you get the daily mass? And because they couldn't in California.
Right.
And I went, well, the Lord gave me this gift. And that's what really jump-started my faith, where it was just more access to the sacraments and realizing what a gift it is. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it has to be taken away from you for you to appreciate what you do have.
Yeah. And so that's where I think a lot of people were waking up to the fact that maybe I shouldn't always listen to the government and have a little more personal freedom. And that turned them towards the church as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Like, it's interesting to me that so many people that don't profess a belief in God want to give that same power to the government.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
It's like,
because
God, you think it's you, and you think the power's in Washington.
Well, right, and that's
I'm like,
the thing.
Christ is king, son.
Yeah, and there are people who believe in God, or there are people who want to be God. That's the difference.
They all have a God.
Oh yeah,
it's just usually
themselves. Or money.
Yeah,
right.
Money, power, sex, whatever it is, pleasure.
Yeah,
like that was one of the things. Like I came to, and I don't know if I should share. I'll tell you. Yeah, I think in one way or another, everybody preaches.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one of the criticisms of Christians, there's so many negative stereotypes. They're always talking about Jesus. I'm like, bro, you haven't shut up about intermittent fasting. You know, like whatever.
Right. It's like just pick whatever.
About, that's what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody preaches. Everybody's judgmental. Everybody's a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey man, I'm human. I'm a flawed human. I don't go to church to prove I'm perfect. I go to church to scream for help. Like, Lord, help me get through this. And you know what? He does. Good. Like, people think there's something wrong with me because I can't stop smiling.
Well, and that's the thing. And it says it on your shirt, positive energy. And that's what people forget is the power of positive energy. And that's one of the things I said it to you last night when you finished your set is I said, that was refreshing.
Thanks, man.
I enjoy a lot of comedians I'm friends with a lot of comedians that come through Imbasciani, especially, and shout out to Imbasciani, fantastic comedy club.
Great
Port
club.
Charlotte.
I can't wait to come back.
Yep, and I'm sure you will be very soon. But comedians all have their own flair. Some are darker than others.
Yeah.
There are people who say that they are clean comedians, and there's still a couple curse words thrown in here and there. You are completely clean.
Yeah.
Like son of a fish. You are clean.
Yeah, you can bring your kids and your grandma
love it.
to come see me.
And that is refreshing. And it is nice to see. And you were smiling the whole time. And it is
I have so much fun up there.
That's great. And that's what I mean as entertainers, that you're not preaching.
Right.
But you're preaching in your own way that positive energy. And because people will find out that it is Jesus that helps you with that,
they're going to
then
want
they'll
to know,
turn to that.
What's the source of that?
Right.
Where's that coming from? And like one of the things, like I've been interviewed before and they're like, oh, is it different being a Christian comedian? And I'm like, well, let's rephrase that. I'm not a Christian comedian. I'm a comedian who's a Christian.
Yeah.
And that's what's different. Like, I'm not just going around playing churches.
Right.
It's like I'm out there in the world, and that's such a beautiful, I don't know, like to be able to give people hope, especially in times like this.
Especially now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think more people are searching, more people are answering it. They say, where sin abounds, grace abounds. And I see a revival, especially among Generation Z.
That's what I'm seeing.
There are so many young dudes that are like,
yeah.
They're warriors. They're like,
well, and that's what I gave a talk at a club about a month ago, and I said, I'm seeing more and more, and I read into it what you want. I think it's very interesting that the new pope is Leo.
Yeah, the lion.
Yeah, but the last Pope Leo, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but I believe I heard this.
Going to go with, yeah.
The last Pope Leo came up with the Archangel Michael prayer.
Saint Michael prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, the last elections, that's politics. We'll stay out of that. But just in that Generation Z that's been talking about it, everybody's talking about putting on the sword and the shield.
We're in a war
of Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Saint Michael.
That's my guy. I have a St. Michael patch on my backpack.
I have a thing in my wallet. I have
he's
a pendant of Archangel Michael. Mm-hmm. And that's the warrior mentality.
We're in a war, dude.
And it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is. And like, Catholics have to really start living their faith.
Yeah.
You have to try to be in a state of grace. Yeah. That's how, when I say I'm a white belt, I wake up and I go, am I in a state of grace? If the answer is yes, try to get the mass. Say a rosary. If I'm not, I'll Google how I can get to confession. Like I am going to confession tomorrow. I already know the church, 8:00 in the morning. I'll be there. Good. And then get to mass. That's it. Mm-hmm. And pray. Pray. Like one of my favorite saints is Padre Pio. Yeah. And he's famous for saying, pray, hope, and don't worry. But you got to pray.
Oh, was that the shirt you had on yesterday?
That's what I was wearing
I like
yesterday.
that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And, you asked what we were going to talk about. When I like doing this podcast because, we've talked a little bit now from yesterday at your show and on the radio. And it's like, I don't like scripting things because I want to see how it goes. And I didn't think this would be the first topic we talked about, but I think it's important.
Because you know what? Anybody that's still listening, let's be honest. Anybody that's still listening,
you need a little tiny Jesus.
Seed. Yeah, everybody needs a little Jesus.
Exactly. Literally. Mm-hmm. And so talk about as well, you did some USO tours.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Well, when did you first get into that?
2006. There was a guy who's a good friend of mine now named Rich Davis that used to work for the USO and realized the best way to get entertainment to the troops would be comedians because we don't have all the equipment. We don't need roadies. We don't We don't really need anything.
Yeah.
So he started a nonprofit called Comics on Duty.
Good.
And I my first tour ever was Afghanistan in 2006.
Wow.
With Comics on Duty.
Yeah.
And then I got to work with the USO as well. And now I have just such an affinity for anybody that's served. I mean, I grew up in the 80s when it was like, regardless of how you voted, you loved America.
Right.
We live in the greatest country in the history of civilization. So anybody that's willing to defend my freedoms and my family, my homeland, the least I can do is try to go make you laugh. That's the very least I could do. And anything for the military.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm one of those dudes.
That is something that, like I said, as an entertainer, that's our job. Is especially if you're going into these war-torn areas, and
that's when I first started to realize, like, I became a comedian because I didn't know what else to do with my life. Life was very difficult for me. Like a normal 9-to-5 job, I'm like, I can't handle this. But I never really saw it as something that could really benefit people. Like I always loved comedy. I grew up with such a comedy. I studied it. I loved it. But I didn't realize that, like, when we were doing those shows overseas, especially in what they call hot zones, especially like in Iraq or
like
Afghanistan or something.
Going to and from.
Yeah, and I haven't done a tremendous amount of that, but especially in those areas, something magical happened. Like when we were on stage, we were no longer in Afghanistan. We were no longer in Iraq.
Yeah.
It literally felt like the Comedy Store, like a comedy club.
That's great.
It felt like when I was on stage, that felt the same as when I was in America. And that's what I realized, that was the gift.
Right.
And sometimes it was just, some of the guys were just so happy. They couldn't believe that a civilian would just go over there.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you doing here, dude? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm here to say thank you.
Yeah. That's great. And so how long did you do that?
I'm trying to remember. I remember I missed a baptism for one of my nephews. So I think the last year I went over was like 2018. I went with Steve Byrne in the USO.
Nice.
And I remember we were in Jordan.
Okay.
And I think we may have been the first USO tour, or the first comedy tour. It was first something in Jordan. And it was so cool. I mean, it was just awesome.
Love it. Yeah, I think Theo Vaughn just did one recently.
He was over the greatest.
There. Yeah.
He is the absolute greatest.
Nice. So let's talk about your roots then, because you obviously, like you just said, you studied comedy. You love it. You mentioned yesterday you also worked for the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. I worked in sports.
Yeah. So, baseball fan?
Huge.
Okay.
The older I get, the more of a fan I become.
Yeah.
I love baseball.
Nice.
Actually, the guy that was hanging out last night is my buddy JJ Necro.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned him.
Yeah, who pitches for the AA affiliate of the Braves.
That's
He's rehabbing. Prayers for JJ that he heals 100%. And
so then quickly, with baseball, what do you think about all these injuries lately? You see so many pitchers are going down with Tommy John.
Yeah.
A lot of batters are getting oblique problems.
Yeah, I don't know.
My own conspiracy is that I think
love conspiracies.
Conspiracy theory of the day. Ever since the pitch clock came in.
Oh, that's interesting.
You're seeing a lot more Tommy John.
Yeah, I've always kind of been more of a baseball purist.
Yeah.
And I haven't really thought much about all the changes. But who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Like my conspiracy brain was like, what kind of drugs are these guys using now that can't be detected that are somehow eating them up?
That's true. I just think because before the pitch clock, you'd have the psychological back and forth between the batter and the pitcher, where the batter can quickly step out, time,
break
or if the pitcher's not feeling right, break the rhythm. Or if a pitcher's not feeling right, they can step off too. And I feel like pitchers are getting a lot more injuries because maybe they do feel a twinge, and then they're just going through it. Yeah, because they can't step off. So I don't know. It's weird, and it might be one of those psychological things that because they think they can't step off, then they're just tightening up, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing, that mind-body connection. It's weird.
Yeah. But love baseball. But how did you get the job with the Eagles?
I answered an ad out of a free newspaper. Yeah. Like it was always a dream to work in sports.
Yeah.
And when I was an undergrad, I thought that I would go to law school and try to become a sports agent.
Okay.
That was like my dream job.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, there's going to be so much money in sports. And I was right about that. But I think one of the greatest
so much money in sports, but you had the unpaid internship.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah. So, and I was like, I tried to get internships. I wanted to be I really wanted to be an agent, and I was way more of an adult at 19 than I am now. I'm like, you got to study. I need to intern. I need to go to law school. But none of that. It was very difficult, like to try to break into the business. Yeah. And like I said yesterday, the business of sport has grown so much.
Definitely.
That it's like, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yes. It's real jobs. There's colleges that offer sports marketing degrees and things like that. And in the 90s when I graduated, it was just like, how can I run away and join the circus? What do I like? What can I do that won't seem like a job?
I like sports.
I like sports.
It's that scene in Seinfeld where George is sitting at the coffee table going, well, you know, they got those guys who talk about stuff during the game. You always say I make good comments. I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very much like Costanza. But I couldn't, I don't, my dad was a math teacher. My mom was
It's all who you know in that type of situation.
I'm not cool. I don't know anybody. I'm just a normal kid from suburban Philadelphia. Yeah. And my mom, God bless her, she's just always been so supportive. And I remember every week, because I quit my corporate job to take the LSATs, I moved back in with my parents. I hated corporate.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, if I go to law school, I could postpone reality for 3 more years. That's because I was like, I didn't really want to be a lawyer. And God just sent me messengers where attorneys would tell me, like they would hear me talking at a table. I remember I was at a place called the Melrose Diner in South Philadelphia. And this guy's overhearing my conversation. He goes, hey, dude, I'm a lawyer. It sucks. You don't want to do it. I'm like, what? He goes, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 22. He goes, I'll tell you what. Play out your 20s. If you still want to be a lawyer, go to law school at 30.
There you go.
And
it's funny because my dad's a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does he like it?
Well, yeah, but even he did wills and trusts and probate stuff. So elder law. So he said he did one divorce, and he said, this woman's calling him at 2:00 in the morning, going, he's on my front lawn. What do I do? He's like, call the cops. Why are you calling me? I'm your lawyer.
It's so funny because I mentioned the Better Call Saul. I love that show.
Oh, me too.
And I always thought, I'm like, man, if he just listened to the Holy Spirit and became an elder attorney, he would have had a much better life. And like a lawyer like that, I would love it because I love old people are my favorite. They are my favorite. Mm-hmm. But to answer the question, I couldn't get an internship out of college. Once again, mysterious ways. I took this LSAT prep course. I forget what it was called, but it was like a lot of money. And they would guarantee you a 10-point jump on your LSAT score. Huh. And I think my pretest, I got like, at that time they scored it up to 180. So 180 would be a perfect score. Mm-hmm. And I think I got like a 168 on my pretest or a 170. It was something ridiculous. Wow. Because I didn't care.
Right.
I just went in so loose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'm going to get a scholarship with my undergrad grades. Yeah. And if I score in the 170, I'm good.
Right.
But every test I took after that, it dropped.
Really? Because you were focusing harder.
Yeah, I tried too hard. Yeah. It was like Tommy Boy trying to sell wings. Remember? It was like, Tommy want wing. Yeah. I had a tendency to overthink things. 100% so. Yeah. So I didn't get the score I wanted. And I was like, if I can't get into an elite school, I learned a bitter lesson from undergrad and college. I'm like, nobody cares where you went to school unless you went to like a premier college. Right. They don't, unless it's like Harvard. They don't care about oil. I'm like, I could have gone to a state school and saved all these student loans. Nobody cared. Nobody
now nobody wants anybody from Harvard for other reasons.
Wink.
Y'all need Jesus.
Yeah. But so couldn't get the internship. I'm trying to find a job. I'm living with my parents. I'm miserable. I'm going through my quarter life crisis. Mm-hmm. And every week I'd pick up the Philadelphia Weekly paper or the City paper. There were 2 free weekly papers. I'd go through the one ads and it said, Philadelphia Eagles Entertainment Division seeks an intern. And I'm like, what's the Philadelphia Eagles? What is it, like a weird like independent film company is what I was thinking. Like
it's like it can't be the football team.
I thought it was like those Civil War reenactor people or something like that. We need an intern to powder our wigs. Like and my mom's like, what if it's the football? It's probably the football team. And I'm like, Mom, I tried for 4 years to get an internship in sports.
Yeah.
They're not 3 weeks into the season advertising for interns.
Yeah.
And it was the
somebody dropped the ball.
Literally.
Yeah.
And it was the cheerleaders and mascot swoop are looking for an intern. Nice. And normally I would overthink things and write a cover letter. I called the number. I talked to this wonderful lady, Mary Lou, God bless her, sweetest woman ever. She was like, oh, I run the cheerleaders. We need an intern. This is what it would be. She was like, can you fax me over a resume? Now, normally I would have gone in my head, tried to create the greatest cover letter ever.
No AI back then.
Right. And then I was like, you know what? I drove to Staples. I just wrote a short note on the cover sheet and I sent it over and they called.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got the job.
Nice.
And then they only wanted me like 3 days a week or something. I treated it like a real job.
Yeah.
I was living at home. I had a little bit of money saved up from my corporate job.
Right.
And I was working at Veterans Stadium. Yeah. It was so cool. I was down on the field for awesome. Games.
Yeah.
And then in the spring, our office door opened up to the concourse and you could go in and watch baseball.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That is awesome.
And I met so many cool people.
If you're down there on the field.
Like, no, even like your coworkers. Because like that worker bee mentality that I encountered in corporate America, no, these guys were different. They were playing life from a different angle.
Really?
And I made some friendships and I met some people that really inspired me.
Good.
Like there was this guy, Scott O'Neill, who became a legend in the business of sport. He was like maybe the youngest vice president in the history of the NFL, had a Harvard MBA, like a real winner. Like you look at the guy, he looks like one of the alpha betas from Revenge of the Nerds. Like he looked like he would torture nerds. He's like a good looking winner. Like, what are you, a fighter pilot? Like one of those guys.
Yeah,
like,
I just wear the jacket.
SEAL. Yeah, you look like one.
Right.
But he was so cool. And he was so supportive of me going after my dream. That's fair. I'm like, man, I think I am going to try to do something different with my life.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Nice. Well, and so in that opportunity, then you got into the dream job that you wanted, being in sports.
Yeah.
But did you feel that fulfillment or no? In the moment, yes, but over time,
first,
did it go away?
What it was? It was a baby step into believing in the power of God.
Okay.
And that dreams can come true.
Yeah.
And that God wants the happiest version of me. And I really thought, I saw all these professional athletes that were using their God-given talent. And everybody would tell me, you should be a comedian.
So
everybody
would tell me that start?
3rd grade.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it started And
so it was always there in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just how God's plan, like even a dream job became work eventually.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was settling.
When you could take that next step.
Yeah. And I felt like, and truthfully, like I always had faith. I always had a relationship with the Lord. And my parents used to encourage us. They'd be like, and I don't know who said it first. They would quote somebody that your talent is God's gift to you. What you do with your talent is your gift back to God.
I like that.
And I always thought, if you can make somebody laugh, life is so difficult. You have a moral obligation to use it. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Like I've met some really cool like military guys, and we're cut from different cloth.
Oh, I have a lot of friends like yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there so many of them are Christians, and so many of them feel like they're sheepdogs. They're like, it's my job to protect.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm glad that's your job. I'll be hiding behind you.
Yeah. Well, it's that Archangel St. Michael mentality.
100% so.
And that's, you said you're actually taking jiu-jitsu now, right?
Yeah, I'm terrible.
Well, I did Kenpo jiu-jitsu for about 15 years.
Kenpo karate and jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
From a guy down here that, God rest his soul, passed away a couple years ago. He was an ex-cop from New York and moved down here, and he, great personality. So many stories. Loved it. But he constantly, would say it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
It's true.
And so you have to be, as a Christian man, put on the armor of God, that it's always on the front of you. It's not on the back of you. You're not turning around, running away. And having that mentality of, I can do what I need to do to protect myself, to protect my family.
Absolutely.
And that means violence in some cases for a lot of people, but it also means that confidence and determination.
Yeah.
To push forward, and that's where that faith comes in, that you're gonna be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool.
So with comedy now, what was your first open mic? And what pushed you to do your first open mic finally?
I did actually my first open mic in the 90s.
Okay.
There was a popular, and we'll do this real quick, then I got to get to the show.
Yeah, you're good.
But there was a comedy club. I didn't even know what there was and I was just so excited there was a comedy club in Baltimore. I was like, wait, what? Maybe, but I never gave myself the permission to even try.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but that's what it was. And I got a job right out of college before the corporate job that I hated. And I would have to take the bus to this job. And as I would take the bus, I would see the comedy club. And I said to myself, if you quit this job, you have to do an open mic. And I had no idea how the process of comedy even worked. I thought comedians just walked out there and said something off the top of their head.
Right.
So the first time I did it, I brought a bunch of people. I'm probably responsible for the phenomenon known as bringer shows, because it wasn't it was just an open mic.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I bring 30 people,
then they'll laugh at me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I did. Yeah. And the owner of the club was like, we're going to put you on last. Because they wanted the audience.
Yeah.
And I did 20 minutes my first time, killed it. Second time.
Got the itch.
Yeah, got the itch. And I did really well my first time. Did okay the second time, did well the third time, and then I bombed probably the next 6 times.
Yeah.
And got the job with the Eagles and forgot about comedy. And then years later, I'm like, no.
So that was even before the Eagles job.
Yeah, that was before the Eagles.
Nice.
Yeah. So even by the time I got to the but I had that, I was bitten by the bug.
Right. And that allowed you the time anyway to kind of hone it in and kind of figure it out and continue.
It was just like I tried it. I enjoyed it. There was no comedy. And I'm like, that's not a real thing you can do with your life.
Right.
Reality came in.
Yeah.
And then I thought that a job like in sports would be a happy medium. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, it's still a job, but it's a real job.
Right.
And it's fun. And like even now, like I live in Lakeland now. It's all normal people. Everybody has a normal job. And when they ask me what I do, I'm like, I'm a comedian. They laugh. Right. They're like, what do you do really? And I'm like, and they're like, for real? How?
It's your real job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I get the same thing.
And I'm just grateful that I'm paying my bills with it.
Exactly.
Because normal people think you're either an open micer or a Seinfeld. They don't realize that in between.
There's a lot in between.
Yeah.
And I said it to you yesterday. There's a difference between being famous and being successful. I feel that with music.
I was like, Mike gets it. I'm like, the simple fact we're blessed in this country. The average American lives better than 99% of the rest of the world.
Yes.
To be a middle-class American is a privilege. And to be able to do that, doing something I love, and then in my own way preach the gospel and let people know let them know they're loved by Jesus, I'm the happiest guy on earth.
Exactly. And we'll end with this real quick. You love Polk County. Mm-hmm, you love Sheriff Grady Judd.
Love him.
And he just got this one guy named Aaron here who thought he could get away from Sheriff Grady, even called out Sheriff Grady.
Serious? Is this real?
This is real. I'll send you the article. You can read it. But real quick, Polk County Sheriff's Office joined in the gloating when they finally caught the guy and said, "You done messed up, Aaron. You forgot all the agencies here in Polk County work together. Thanks, Lakeland PD, for the find." And they got the guy.
Oh, that's awesome. Good job, guys.
Good Grady Judd fashion. We love it. Well, where can people find you?
My website's awesomesteve.com. And there's a link. Instagram is the one thing of social media I use the most, and that's just Steve Simeone, Simeone, Steve Simeone Comedy.
Simeone, exactly. Well, folks, thank you for watching. I'll put all that info down in the description. Go check him out. Fantastic comedian. You will love his show. And clean. You can take the whole family, and they will all be laughing because we all did last night when we saw him. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, dude. God bless.
Yes, sir. And
go
thank
to
you,
church.
everybody. Yes, go to church. Put on that armor of God. We'll see you in the next one.
Amen.